you and I were big fans of the Chuck Norris jokes. I don't know that we were necessarily fans of Chuck Norris, but if someone said, hey, who's the toughest man alive? I probably would have said Chuck Norris because the jokes are so good. But now that he's dead, it leaves an opening for who is the toughest guy in Hollywood. And not the most physically imposing guy, but who's legitimately dangerous. You met him on the street and they could just kick your butt. So I put together the top 5 list of the guys that I think are the toughest guys in Hollywood.
Quite the turn from our coverage of Euphoria.
Quite the turn from Euphoria.
I'm for it. So
nothing
Jeff,
about this was inspired by Euphoria. This is strictly my love for Chuck Norris.
do you have any honorable mentions?
I do have honorable mentions. And even before that, Josh, I want to give a quick caveat because I know that there's a lot of people that can be argued for. So one of my caveats is you can't have been a fighter first. Okay, so if you were a fighter turned actor, then I didn't include you in this list. Randy Couture was the heavyweight champion of MMA, became an actor. He could obviously make the list, but if you were a fighter first, then I kept you off the list. And then the other part is I wanted to really focus on people who were like superstars. There's certain people that I didn't include, people like Scott Adkins. You'll see him a lot, but you don't necessarily know him by name. He's probably one of the toughest guys. But not a megastar. A couple of international stars that, again, I just don't think are big enough stars here. Donnie Yen and Tony Jaa. These guys are elite level stunt performers, trained in Muay Thai. Donnie's trained in Tai Chi, Wing Chun, kickboxing. These guys are super tough. I just don't think that they're like big enough stars here. Someone like Michael Jai White, inarguably one of the toughest. Again, just not a big enough superstar. My true honorable mention here, Josh, is Bob Odenkirk.
Bob, you mean Saul?
Yes. And he's in my honorable mentions. Please don't just dismiss this list whole cloth. He's in this list because I just think it's cool that he trained for 2 years for the movie Nobody. Somebody was like, let's make him an action star. And so he trained for a couple years in boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and weapons for Nobody. And then when they wanted to make Nobody 2, they went to his trainer and was like, hey, how fast can we get Bob in shape? And his trainer said, he's in shape. He didn't stop training. He loved the training so much that he stuck with it. And so I just think that's really impressive that a man in his like 50s, 60s is like, I just think training is awesome. And so continued training in these disciplines. So Bob Odenkirk, you're my honorable mention, not the top 5 for the toughest guys in Hollywood.
That's great. He's always been one of my favorite actors, even back when he was doing really weird stuff back in the day. So,
oh yeah.
Okay, Jeff, who's your number 5 toughest guy in Hollywood?
So number 5, we're gonna go with Keanu Reeves.
Okay,
he is so well trained in actual martial arts disciplines and not just stunt choreography. He's trained in judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He has high level tactical firearms training. He's trained so consistently for so many years that if you met Keanu Reeves on the street, even though he seems like a nice guy, he will absolutely tear you apart. So Keanu Reeves is my number 5.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, number 4.
Number 4, we're going to go with Frank Grillo. I don't even know if Frank's a household name, but you and I love him so much. And I've met him a few times in real life. He's just an awesome guy. He's a lifelong boxer. He regularly spars and fights, well into his 50s. He's trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You're going to notice a theme here that a lot of these guys are tumblers. He's the closest thing to a true fighter's sort of lifestyle on this list. And I would not want to mess with Frank Grillo.
Absolutely. Okay, number 3.
Number 3 is not an actor, but he's so well known that he makes the list, and it's Guy Ritchie.
Really?
So Guy Ritchie is a director, and he is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And there are very few black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it's under Renzo Gracie. So he is a legitimate tough guy. Decades of consistent grappling training. He's just so technically dangerous that even if you're 300 pounds, he's going to put you in a leg lock and break your leg, and it's game over. So Guy Ritchie, you're my number 3, a legitimate tough guy.
Okay. All right. You're number 2.
So even though Guy could probably kick this guy's ass, Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy actively competes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments. He's won multiple gold medals in regional competitions. He's only a blue belt, which is a far cry from a black belt, but he's also got a lot of pounds on Guy, and you got to sort of factor that into account. There's a great story about a guy who entered a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition, and he makes it to the finals, and he's like, hey, that kind of looks like Tom Hardy. And he's like, holy shit, that is Tom Hardy. Holy shit, I'm fighting Tom Hardy. And I think Tom Hardy eventually beat him and just like walked away. And Tom was just there to be a competitor. He wasn't there to be a superstar. He was just there. So Tom Hardy's my number 2.
Who's your number 1?
So number 1 almost breaks my rules because he does come from WWE, but I don't consider World Wrestling an actual fighting discipline. So it is Dave Bautista. Dave actually fought in the UFC, and he won. So this was back in 2013. He's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is pretty high. He continually trains. He's obviously very strong. He's very large. I think you put all these guys in a room and Dave Bautista walks out. So he's got the size. He's got the real training. He is a legit threat. Dave Bautista is, in my mind, the new Chuck Norris.
Okay, so we have to come up with a bunch of Dave Bautista jokes.
Yes, we do.
One person that I think is missing from your list. What about Reacher, Alan Rickson?
Alan's one of those guys where he looks great and he's really great at stunt fighting, but he's not trained. And so if you put him in the ring with Dave Bautista, if you even put him in the ring with Keanu Reeves, I bet those guys get him to tap pretty quickly. And so being large and being muscular does not mean that you're a tough guy, does not mean that you know how to fight. And this isn't a great example, but Matt Damon is famous for being Jason Bourne. Matt Damon is not a tough guy. And he talks all the time about how enamored he is with Tom Cruise doing his own stunts and whatnot. And Matt Damon's always like, I'm happy when my stunt guy goes in there and I don't have to do it. So just because you see somebody on screen be a tough guy, doesn't mean that you're a tough guy. Jake Gyllenhaal is another, notable exception. He's trained really hard in both boxing and MMA. You could probably put him high on this list. That's a notable exception. But and look, I'm not a tough guy. I did some research into this, but if there are people that you think I missed, absolutely, put them in the comments. Would love to know who we should make the next Chuck Norris, because I think Dave Bautista for right now is the answer.
So you're saying, Jeff, is in a fight, just because you're large doesn't mean you'd be in charge.
That's right. Because I've never won a fight with my wife, and she is 5'1" and 100 pounds. So again, Josh, that's the list, the sentimental list that nobody asked for of the top 5 toughest guys in Hollywood now that Chuck Norris is dead. And I don't think anybody takes the crown. I think that the throne will be vacant for a long time because Chuck Norris had that much of an impact.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.